What's up, guys? As part of the December 13th Giant Shadow patch, of course, as I'm going to be talking about today, the new map called Giant Shadow was unleashed on the public. You can play it now if you pre-ordered the game or bought premium, otherwise you're going to have to wait until December 20th if you only bought the base game. As usual, because this is a brand new map, what I'll do is break down my thoughts on the map in terms of fun factor, which of course is a completely subjective opinion. Some people are going to love it, some people are going to hate it regardless. So I'll give my thoughts on it. I'll give my thoughts on potential balance concerns, and I'll just discuss general map flow and breakdown of how it usually plays, at least in the amount that I've played. And getting into that, I've played about 15 matches. I know a lot of other YouTubers played one match and threw up their opinion on it, but I like going for a definitive, larger sample size to come to real definitive conclusions on potential problems with it, and pros with it. So while I don't believe anyone truly figured out the map yet, I think 15 matches is a pretty good size to at least come to some general conclusions. So let's get right into it. To me, the map, at least, it feels a lot like a combination of Suez and St. Quentin Scar. Suez more because it's designed in a more linear fashion. You can basically go in an almost straight line from one flag to another for the most part. And St. Quentin Scar just because of the general layout. It's got those like grassy terrains, and it's even got windmills and small villages that look identical to St. Quentin Scar. So that's sort of how it feels like to me. What's weird though is because of the artificial confines, it sort of restricts you to a more linear style, whether you like it or not. And what I mean by the artificial confines are, it's like, you know, when you're traversing across a map and it's like, you're out of bounds, turn back. That's what I mean. It feels like the map can be bigger than what it is. It's just that, well, it's not. And the way it shapes out is that it seems more linear or a straight line because of those artificial bounds that the map has put in. So because of that, though, the map isn't really as large as you think. So it seems like it's going to be a large map, but it's not. It's maybe a medium-sized map at max. It's not necessarily one of the smaller ones. It's not necessary, but it's absolutely not a large map either. It's a very linear, medium-sized map. It feels a lot like Suez's design, of course. As you can see, because I included a screenshot of the map, battles mostly happen between C and D flag, and that's where the airship remnants are scattered. There is a bit of an elevation climb. If you start at C, that's on the lower elevation side of things, and D, of course, is on the higher elevation side of things. Inside the shell of the airship, there is cover in the form of terrain and the scratched up ground. So as the airship fell, it scratched up the ground. It created these sort of artificial hills. So a lot of the time they can be used for cover. They can be used for gaining an elevation change advantage if you're on D side, for example. So that would be the biggest difference. And I've seen lots of people complain about a lack of general cover in this map, and that's true if you're looking at it as from a perspective of there's no buildings, no shacks, no concrete walls or trenches, which I think would be beneficial additions to the map because there's none in them right now. Having said that, though, there are a bit of natural cover. There are elevation and hill terrain differences that you can sort of peek and stay behind that obscure you and the enemy's bullets from hitting you. So it's not necessarily true that there's absolutely no cover in the map. I was able to get around, say, the north side of the airship there as just sniping, and it wasn't a huge deal because there was the elevation terrain differences and the enemies couldn't hit me. Having said that, though, just because the enemy can't hit you doesn't mean that they can't see you, and that's a big issue with the map that I've found. If an enemy's locked down C and D, no matter where you try and flank to potentially get outside flags back, or maybe try and mount a flank on C or D flag, as much as the enemy might not be able to see you because of the natural elevation changes, they're absolutely going to see you, and they're absolutely going to know exactly where you're going and where you're planning on going. So that is an issue. There's no real surprises to this map is what I'm saying. You're not going to turn around and all of a sudden say, oh, we're losing our gimme flag. You knew it was coming. That's part of an issue with it. Vehicles come in great handy here. You might just be able to strong arm your way to another flag, so make sure you don't waste tanks because there are a few of them in the map. And the biggest issue I found with vehicles too is, for good or for bad, of course, depending on whose perspective you're taking here, because of the natural elevation changes and hills for infantry that sort of keep you from getting slaughtered, at least when you're playing as an infantryman, a good pilot can obliterate a server. I've run into a couple of them already, and it's because those natural hills and elevation changes do nothing for you if you're being attacked from above. And if you're fighting in C and D inside the airship, there's no actual roof on the airship. So I've seen bomber runs just take a straight run when you're fighting between C and D, and they obliterate 5-6 people at once. So that is a bit of a concern. It's not. I'm not saying nerf pilots or air or anything like that as of yet, because it's a small sample size. But this map here, of course, is, if you're a good pilot, you're gonna have some fun, I think. The areas right next to the airship provide excellent flank opportunities, as many people try and stay on the flags and shoot downwards from D onto C from that. So take the opportunity to flank using the outside as a sort of concealment area, and go nuts on those guarding the flags who won't expect you to be there, at least early on in this small sample size of matches, because I don't think a lot of people have figured that out yet. But you just stand outside, run up next to the airship, and surprise, you can shoot in the gaps on the side to take people out who are shooting basically directly down. They've got tunnel vision. The map does play to a much faster style than I'd say most average maps that you play. And while I don't think it's incredibly uneven for either team, because I have had basically in the 15, I'd say about 7 or 8 or maybe 9 were favored when I was on the German side, or at least A flag side. I do believe, though, F has more ground to cover between flag captures to get to C and D. So based on the fact that they have to travel further, it means that the A side flags will get to and take flags quicker, as long as they're concentrated, than the other ones would. And that is a little bit of a concern. You'd expect ideally that everyone arrives at the same time, and it's a big mess. Perhaps DICE decided that because F flag is going to have the elevation difference, that perhaps that if it gives the other team on C side a chance to potentially climb the hill, maybe that was the difference in the logic they were going with. But there is a little bit of a concern there. I have noticed that when I played on F side, that almost always the enemy team has already taken C and is halfway to D by the time our team even gets there. And that's a direct line. We were running as fast as conceivably possible. So there is a distance gap that of concern there. The map, I've only played it in Conquest so far. I could not find many servers that play it for Rush, and I don't believe it's at all available in Operations mode. I do think, though, it would play well in Operations mode in style of format, conceivably also Rush mode. I believe it's actually probably more better suited for Rush or Operations than it would be for Conquest, so I hope that it's added to the lineups down in future patches. So, and the reason for that is I just don't think it plays that great as a Conquest map. It's not a terrible map, it's certainly not one of my favorites when it pops up or when I access it. I would like to see it expanded more if I had to make any changes to it, or at least sort of keep C and D flag, of course, in the airship, leave it there, those are fine, but maybe spread out the other flags a little bit more. Maybe put one right next to the water in the back, maybe leave A in the village and then put B instead of right next to it, put it on the area going up to the airship. I just think they need to be spread out a little bit more to really spread out the linear fashion, because right now if you were to lose D flag and that was your gimme flag, say E flag, all you'd have to do is drop back a little bit, take it, and then go right back up to D in a straight line. There's no real, if I leave this, it's a long distance to the other one. So there's no definitive choice making. But that's my thought. It's a more longer engagement maps. It's quite linear. There isn't a ton of cover against airplanes from above, and there's no real artificial cover in the forms of buildings. But it's not as bad as I think a lot of people are making it out to be, because I found it's not the most even map either. Like I do think that A side has a slight advantage, but it's not definitive. I have won on the other side several times as well. So that's what I've come to in the conclusions of in 15 matches in this map. But of course I'm going to vary it up, and I'll update the changes if I find that there is larger concerns, or that I feel that I've revisited it and it's a different story. So that's it. Let me know if you've played it. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it's a good map, bad map, etc. And of course, if you liked the video, please leave a like. It helps. Plus, share it with someone if you think it's going to be good for them to learn from it or they think they enjoy it. And subscribe if you'd like to see more breakdowns of this sort. Have a good one, YouTube.